So flirting is tension, and women love that kind of tension. So you're mid-conversation with a girl and you can literally feel her interest just draining out of the interaction. 5 minutes ago, she was engaged, and now she's like scanning the room, checking her phone, giving you the polite one-word response. And the worst part is you weren't really doing anything wrong. You weren't being boring. You were actually friendly and asking good questions and having a pretty nice conversation. And that's the problem, because that nice conversation is the thing that's killing any chance of real attraction. Here's the thing. 95% of guys don't understand about flirting. It has almost nothing to do with being funny or charming or complimenting her or even saying the right thing. Flirting runs on one fuel, and that fuel is tension. So in this video, I'm gonna break down why tension is the single most important element of any flirtatious interaction, and then I'm gonna give you 6 specific moves that help you create it very, very quickly, so that the next conversation you have with a woman moves you from that friendly level to flirting with her to feeling the type of butterflies that she's been waiting for. And that's when you can lean in, because she's wanting and waiting for you to kiss her. Hi, I'm Bobby Rio, and I want to quickly tell you about the night that I learned one of the most painful and also one of the most embarrassing lessons, days of my life around flirting. A while back, I went to visit my old college fraternity house, and I had been in a bit of a slump with women back then, and I figured that a trip back to my old stomping ground would hopefully snap me out of it. So I'm in the kitchen and I'm, filling up my red cup of beer, and I see this girl in the corner, and she's got this like young, cute Marisa Tomei quality to her, and I find it just super attractive. And she's eating this like organic health bar, and my brain goes into overdrive because I'm like, this is my in. Because at the time, I was like really in this massive health food phase and drinking smoothies and supplements, the whole deal. So I walk over and I start talking to her about it, and she lights up, right? It turns out that we're both obsessed with the same health guru, this guy, Gary Knoll, who had wrote a bunch of books, and he's got kind of this cultish following, and apparently we're both members of Gary Knoll's fan club. So for the next hour, we're like deep in it. Favorite books, favorite recipes. We're like a couple of suburban moms, like scoffing at everyone at the party who doesn't share our organic ideals and health things, and we're making plans to visit the Gary Knoll Center in New York together. And I'm thinking like, this is the best conversation I've ever had with a woman. I asked my buddy for a condom and I put it in my pocket. That's how certain I was something was gonna happen. Then we're talking for a little bit more, and she excuses herself to go to the bathroom. And I'm sitting there waiting, but I'm still confident. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes go by, and now I start to get a little panicky, and that sick feeling comes in the pit of my stomach. And I'm like, what happened? So I go upstairs and I'm looking around. I'm trying not to make it like I'm looking for her, but I'm looking for her. I don't want to look like I'm stalking her out, but I want to know, like, did something happen? Because it was really weird that she would have just left the conversation. And there's a door closed upstairs, and I think I hear her giggling. So I crack the door open, and there she is with one of my frat brothers. This guy is like an alcoholic, wise-ass guy who would have laughed in her face if she mentioned like the word vegan. And she's just, let's say, giving him a very enthusiastic hand gesture. And she looks up at me, and I'll never forget. To this day, I'll never forget the look in her eyes, because it wasn't disgust or anger or embarrassment. It was pity. Like, you're really nice, but I came here to party, not to discuss Gary Knoll all night. Now, that night messed me up for a while. The mistake that I made that night, and I had been making this mistake for years without realizing it, and it's a mistake that I see men make every single day, is being too afraid to break rapport you've built. So I'm gonna write down, you have to break rapport. This is like a critical lesson. You have to be willing to break rapport. I'm gonna explain what this means, but just keep this fact in mind, that you have to be willing to break the rapport that you've been building. So the conversations, in my case, the conversation's flowing. You've probably been in this situation. She's smiling, things feel good. And when a conversation with a woman feels easy, like it did with me and that girl, or like you've been in those situations, we do something that is very detrimental. We treat that comfort like it's something fragile. We don't want to mess it up. So instead of risking that friendly vibe that we have now, risking that pour and that that, vibe we've got going on, we stay in that same vibe all night. We keep talking, we keep bonding, we keep the conversation in that same stale level that runs its course right into lack of attraction. Or if a guy does move things forward, you do it in the wrong way. You maybe compliment her, but flirting isn't just complimenting a woman. In fact, flirting, in the list of what flirting is, complimenting is actually low on the list. So flirting is tension. It's the act of introducing tension. It's throwing a little spark into the conversation that disrupts that purely platonic vibe and creates a new energy between you and the woman. It's the moment where things stop feeling purely friendly and starts to feel a little bit more charged, a little bit more uncertain, a little bit more alive. But it requires risk, which is what most guys are afraid of. But until that tension shows up, you're usually just having a nice conversation. And nice, pleasant conversations by themselves rarely create that feeling that causes a woman to follow you upstairs in a dirty frat house bedroom. At some point, you have to make the pivot. I call it the friendly to flirty pivot. You have to stop protecting comfort of the interaction and be willing to create a little friction, a little uncertainty, a little spark. Whether you're talking to a woman at a social event, you're on a date with her, at some point you've got to do this friendly to flirty pivot. So I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to go through them, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that night with the health food girl at the party, and I'm going to show you exactly what I should have done differently at each step so that you can see the technique and how it's natural to do this in a conversation. So let's get into it. So point number one is the push and the pull. So push-pull. You may be familiar with this term, you may not be familiar with this term, but I can tell you, having coached guys now for like 17 years, you're not doing it enough, okay? What do I mean? Pushing and pulling is giving her something to chase. So let's go back to that night at the kitchen at the frat house. And she flashes me her organic health bar, and we realize that we're both into the same health food stuff. And what did I do? I went all in. Full agreement, full enthusiasm. I was basically like wagging my tail like, oh my gosh, you're like Gary Knoll too, we're soulmates. Like a freaking little poodle. All pull, zero push. Here's what I should have done instead. When she showed me that health bar, I should have said something like, oh no, you're one of those girls, let me guess, you have a yoga mat in your car and you like judge people who eat bread. See, very simple. What I'm doing there is I'm acknowledging the connection. Like, I noticed what she's eating. I'm tying that back to her, so I'm using that as my intro, but I'm teasing her about it. I'm not trying to bond with her like her sorority sister, right? I'm pulling her in by showing her I noticed, and then I'm pushing her away with a playful challenge. Now, when you do this, instead of being two like Gary Knoll fanboys bonding over kale smoothies, we're in a flirty back and forth where she's defending herself, laughing, trying to like win back my approval. That's push-pull. You give her something and then you take it a little bit back. And you do this back and forth throughout the interaction. And you can use this anywhere. She tells you that she loves some movie that you actually like. You can go, you know what? You're actually kind of cool for someone who just admitted that they cry at the Notebook. You touch her hand while you're making a point. Be the first to pull away. Let her feel the absence. The rule is always be the one who pulls back first. Touch, compliment, attention. You withdraw it before she does. That creates a gap that she's gonna wanna close. So the takeaway with the push-pull is this. If you're always leaning in, she never has to lean towards you. You wanna give her something to lean towards, to chase. So the next thing is playful disagreement. Playful disagreement. That means stop being so damn agreeable. And this is the one mistake that really sank me the hardest that night. For an entire hour, I agreed with everything that girl said. Every opinion, every preference, every recommendation that she gave me. I was nodding like a bobblehead doll, like I probably had whiplash the next morning. And I mean, the truth was I did kind of agree with everything she was saying, you know. I was really into the thing she was into. But just because something feels right doesn't always mean it's what creates attraction, okay? If she says she hates processed food, I don't have to be like, me too. She says that Gary Knoll changed her life. Oh my God, same here. She scoffs at the people drinking, you know, beer and eating pizza and gluten and all that. I don't have to nod along side her, even if I agree with her. That's the thing I think a lot of guys don't understand, is that there was a saying I learned years ago by a pickup artist. It's not lying, it's flirting. When you're flirting, you don't have to stick to the facts. You can just have fun. You don't, even if you agree with her, you can still disagree. There's no like lawyer like checking what you said and fact checking it later like they do, you know, when a president gives a speech and they tell you all the shit. Nobody's doing that when you're flirting with a girl. Now, that doesn't mean you just make up random lies, but it means you don't have to agree with everything she's saying. So again, I thought I was building this deep connection, but what I was actually building was a friendship, a nice, comfortable, completely sexless friendship, but worse, a friendship that really only revolved around one topic, health food. And once that topic runs its course, now we're like two people that have nothing else to say to each other. So here's what I should have done. When she starts going off about how Gary Knoll is basically a genius, I should have said, I think he's like 60% genius, 40% cult leader, but I respect your commitment to the cult. I mean, you totally got the cult thing down, right? Now again, I liked it, but that doesn't mean I can't bust her balls for it. Or when she's judging the other party goers for eating junk food, I could have said something like, honestly, I'd kill for a slice of pizza right now. Like, don't tell the Gary Knoll fan club, I'll get kicked out of it. That's a playful disagreement. You're being a man who has his own opinions. Like, just because she's like, gluten's bad and I don't want to eat pizza, like, I don't have to go along with it, right? Now that's an extreme example, but you can do this with anything she's saying. Just push back against it. Be the one who isn't afraid to break from the script that you guys have together. And when you do that, it creates instant tension, because now she's thinking, wait, this guy isn't just agreeing with me anymore to get in my pants. He actually has his own mind. It creates a new dynamic. Now, I see this with my clients all the time. I had a guy tell me about a girl that he met at a networking event, and he talked to her for 2 hours of nodding and smiling. By the time he tried to shift the energy, the friend zone vault had swung shut, and now he was locked in there. The takeaway is this: agreement is comfortable. Comfortable is not exciting. Comfortable does not create attraction. Comfortable doesn't create tension. You don't have to be a jerk, but you do have to be willing to disagree, to push back, to be playful about it, but to have your own opinion. Now, the next one is the flip, okay? So this is where you make her the pursuer, all right? So we're changing the roles. Now, women aren't stupid. Now, it turned out that I legitimately was into health food, but part of her brain was probably like, this guy is laying on this a little bit thick because he's hoping that it makes me like him, and he's hoping that, what, you know, she's not stupid. So, all right, getting back to that, at one point during our conversation, she's asking me all kinds of questions, like where I get my supplements, what books I've read, what my smoothie recipe, like she's generally curious about these things because she found somebody else willing to talk about it. And what did? I just answered her truthfully, right? Like a helpful customer service rep. Oh, I get mine from Whole Foods. Like, oh, here's my recipe. Let me write it down for you. I was so busy being useful that I forgot to be wanted, to be sexy, to be seductive. So what should I have done? I should have flipped the frame. When she starts asking me all these questions, I should have just smirked and said something like, whoa, are you interviewing me right now? Like, should I be nervous? This feels like a first date, right? Now I'm creating, right? This feels like a first date, saying you're interviewing me like we're on a first date. That's throwing tension in there. You're kind of making it go like, whoa, what is this? Did he mean that? Did he not mean that? Or even better, you know, all right, slow down there. You're clearly obsessed with me. I get it, but buy me a drink first, and not a freaking smoothie. I want a real drink if you're gonna seduce me. Like, now the dynamic is flipped. Now you're framing it like you're not the eager guy trying to impress her with all your health food knowledge. Now you're framing it like you're the prize and she's like pursuing you and trying to impress you. And when you do this, she's gonna play along because it's fun. She's at a social event. She wants to have fun. She doesn't want to be an encyclopedia of whatever the hell I was diarrheaing out of my mouth that night. So this works in any context. She touches your arm. Hey, I'm not that kind of guy, at least like not on a Tuesday. Maybe if this was a Saturday, I would be that easy. Maybe she laughs at something you say. All right, stop flirting with me. It's getting embarrassing. But here's one very important warning. So I had a coworker a while back that I was attracted to. And after learning this, I swung way too far in the opposite direction. And with this girl, I thought I was playing it cool. I was like always pushing her away and not showing interest. And months later, she flat out tells me like, oh, I thought you were just like one of those asexual guys or gay or something. I couldn't even tell you were into women. I was like, whoa. So the flip only works if there's desire underneath it. So again, you're pulling her forward, pushing her away. If you're always just pushing her away, you don't want to come across like I did in that other situation where she doesn't even think you like women. She needs to sense that you want her, but you're just confident enough to play around and let it like happen naturally and not like force the rapport. So again, the takeaway here is frame her as the one chasing, but again, make sure she knows that there's something worth chasing. Now, real quick, before we get to the next technique, if you're the type of guy like I was, who really needs this sort of thing broken down, word for word, what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and specific techniques for doing this with a lot of examples, I've got a brand new handbook. It's a field guide of sorts, and I call it the Friendly to Flirty Pivot System. And it contains close to 30 word for word ways to create that feeling of chemistry with a woman that you're talking to. And you can download it in the description below, or go to passhertest/flirty. Now, let's go to the next one. And that's called the power of the pause. Power of the pause. And this is another thing that I did wrong that night. I never shut the fuck up. I just kept talking and talking the entire time with this girl. I'm like filling every freaking sentence, jumping from one recipe and Gary Knoll topic and smoothie. If there was even a half a second gap, I'd panic and I'd bring up another supplement she should take or whatever, because in my head, silence meant failure. It meant she would lose interest and get bored and walk away and all of that bad stuff. But here's the truth. Silence is one of the most powerful flirting tools that you have. What should I have done? I should have done this. At some point during our conversation, when she said something interesting, instead of immediately responding, I should have just held eye contact, let a beat pass, maybe a light, slight smirk. 3 seconds of silence is a lot of times all it takes. And in those 3 seconds, her brain starts going crazy. What is this? What is he thinking? Is he about to kiss me? Why did he just look at me like that? And you know what that is? That's tension. And you created it by doing absolutely nothing. So I watched my buddy do this once. He's at the bar and he's talking to a girl for maybe 5 minutes, and she says something and he just holds. He doesn't respond, gives her a little half smile, and it was getting like uncomfortable for me to watch because he's just like looking at her and not saying anything. And she winds up blushing, then she looks away, and then she moves closer to him. He created more tension in 3 seconds than I created in like 2 hours talking about health food with that girl. And if the silence does get a little awkward, own it. One of my favorite lines, I'm on a date or something and we do run into that awkwardness, I just go, oh no, our first uncomfortable silence, we'll get through it. We'll get through it together. Trust me. That's social intelligence. And it's also something called breaking the fourth wall, which is another friendly to flirty pivot technique that I'm not getting into this one, but you're breaking the fourth wall. You're calling out what's going on, but you're also demonstrating social intelligence. You're not rattled by it. And by not being rattled by it, not letting her see you sweat because there's a little silence, that's actually making you look more attractive. So the takeaway is the man who's comfortable in silence signals he's done this before. And that calm confidence is attractive. The next one is explicit restraint. And this is all about becoming the forbidden fruit. And this is a big one. It's probably the single thing that might have changed the entire night for me. And I could have been the one upstairs getting the handy Andy and not my friend. For a full hour, I never once let that girl know that I saw her as anything more than a fellow Gary Knoll enthusiastic. Not once. I never stated my intent. I never let her feel my desire. As far as she was concerned, I was the guy she talks about fiber supplements with. That's the role that I gave myself. And that's the role that she let me stay in. So here's what I should have done. At some point, while she's thinking about her favorite smoothie recipe, and she does that thing where she's like, what was it? And she pushes her hair behind her ear, whatever little sexy thing she does, I should have looked at her and said something like, that thing you just did with your hair, I completely lost track of what you're saying. Just say it again. You just like lost me. That's explicit restraint. I'm telling her that I'm attracted to her, that she did something that caused me to not be able to pay attention attention to what she was saying because she looked attractive. I'm painting a picture of my desire, but I'm not acting on it. I'm not complimenting her outright. I'm not going, oh my God, you're so attractive. I'm saying it casually, and then I'm going right back to the normal conversation. Like, I say that again, I was looking at what you were doing, and you just totally, my mind just went blank for a second, that thing you did. Then I go right back to it, because what I did in that moment was I drew a little tension there, and now the tension is simmering. I said it, and then I moved on. I said that thing, I called her sexy, whatever I did, I said it, and then I went back to the normal conversation, but underneath, it's sitting there. And now she knows this isn't just friendly. And every time that we go back to talking about freaking smoothies, there's this undercurrent of, when is he gonna do something about this? My buddy Rob Judge, he's a master at this. He was on a date once, and he's talking about playing tennis with a girl. And instead of just saying, yeah, that'd be fun, because she's like, oh, we should play sometime. And most guys, they would go, yeah, that'd be fun. He looks at her and he goes, I can't play tennis with you. If you show up in one of those little tennis skirts, I'm gonna make a complete fool of myself. He told her that he wants her. That's basically what he said. He's painted the picture of his desire, but he put a wall in front of it. Like, I can't play tennis with you because I'm gonna be so turned on by the way you look in that skirt that I'm gonna make a fool of myself. So it's an explicit restraint. But what happens is now she can't stop thinking about it. Most guys either hide their desire completely or they dump it all out at once and they come off as desperate. This is the sweet spot. You let her feel your desire while showing her that you have the self-control to hold it back. So you tell her what you want, and then you tell her why you can't have it yet. The gap between those two things is where obsession lives. All right, the next one is number 6. Create us versus the world. You got to create the us versus the world moment together. So this is the last piece of the puzzle, and this is subtle, but it's pretty powerful. Remember how I said that me and Marisa Tomei, health food girl, and we're scoffing at everyone else at the party? We're making fun of the people that are eating pizza and drinking beer. That was actually the closest thing to a flirtatious moment we had all night, because for a second it was us against them. We had our own little world, but I blew it because I kept it about the topic. It was us versus them because we're healthy and they're not, instead of us versus them because we're in on something together. Here's what I should have done. This would have been way better. Instead of bonding over how superior our diet was, I should have turned it into like a private game with her. Like, okay, see that guy over there with the pizza? I bet you $10 he's about to go back for a third slice. If he does, you owe me a smoothie, all right? Whatever, you owe me a back rub. Now it's not about vegetarianism, it's about us. You owe me this. I'm bringing it. I always say, if you're talking to a woman and you imagine that there's a spotlight. Sometimes the spotlight is on her and she's talking about some random topic and you're listening. Sometimes you're talking about something and she's listening. Sometimes you're both talking about health food and now, like, the spotlight is on health food. You want the spotlight on the interaction between you and her, meaning you reacting to her, you making a bet with her. Like, now the dynamic is like focused on you and her. Something's going on here. A private bet, a shared secret, a conspiracy between you. I used this thing later with another girl who hated the word literally. Every time someone around us said literally, I'd give her this look and she tried not to crack up. It became our thing. In a room full of people, it was just us, just us waiting for somebody to say literally, and I'd go bam, or, give her the high five under. Like, that's creating an us moment. And that's what feels like flirting. And you can do this anywhere. At a party, lean in over and say, if that guy comes over here, our code word is pineapple, and we both bail. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be logical. I always say what worked in the playground in 4th grade works in the dating world. So now you're in partner's crime, and that bond, that feeling of it's you and me, that's incredibly flirtatious, even though nothing overtly sexual is being said. So the strongest flirting doesn't always look like flirting. Sometimes it's just creating a moment that belongs only to you and her. It makes things more intimate. So here's what I need you to take from this. Flirting is not about having the perfect line. It's not about being smooth or charming or funny. Some of these things are mildly funny, but nothing that I'm saying is like comedic. It's stupid, it's silly, but it's creating moments where she feels like something between you is happening. A challenge, a spark, a question she can't answer, a look that makes her get those little bit of butterflies. That's what tension does. And that's what all 6 of the moves I gave you, they have in common. They're designed to take a conversation from safe and predictable to electric and unpredictable. And that's the shift. Stop trying to be the guy that she likes talking to. Now, like I said, if you want to go deeper on this, if you want step-by-step instructions, word-for-word examples, I have a very short guide that breaks down over 25 of these techniques, word for word, plenty of examples to move from friendly to flirty. It's called the Friendly to Flirty Pivot System, and I'm gonna drop a link in the description, or you can find it at passhertest.com/flirty. Inside, you get a field guide full of these pivot maneuvers, specific techniques that you can start using in any conversation you have to shift that dynamic from friendly to flirty. You'll get a step-by-step framework for creating sexual tension in a platonic conversation. Even if you've known her for years and she's never looked at you in that way, what to do when she hits you with, "I see you like a friend." Like, there's ways to handle that create tension. The push-pull formula that keeps her emotionally off balance in the best way. And a complete scenario breakdown, sort of like what I did in this video of here's the weak response, here's a stronger response, and you can see them side by side. You can download it at the link in the description or directly at passhertest.com/flirty. As always, if you found this video helpful, hit like, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe.